I want to bring in now Jennifer Kearns. She's a contributor for the Daily Caller, also The Hill. And Richard Roth is here with us, Democratic strategist and founder and partner of the Roth law firm. Good to see both of you here. I want to jump back into some sound. I'll start with you, Jennifer. Nancy Pelosi was talking about disinfectants as well, as so many were. It's becoming a major point of hers. Here she is on Jake Tapper's show on CNN.
Testing, 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 tracing, tracing, tracing. Isolation,
okay.
And when we're ready, we'll go out there. But there's planning. We spend a lot of time on what the president said when,
right.
And disinfectant in the body.
Okay.
You know what they call that? They call that embalming.
So this went unchallenged, the topic of embalming here, that the president of the United States wants to embalm his people. Jennifer, starting with you, is this controversy slowing down the number of press briefings now?
Well, look, I've been growing increasingly concerned over the last several weeks, Sean, about the length and the breadth of these press briefings. I've spent most of my career as a lifelong press secretary, and I've been in 3 prominent positions in a very blue state with a very tough press corps with 40 million people. And I can tell you a thing or two about wrangling with the press. And, I know that President Trump loves to argue with them, and I love President Trump. But, there is an old saying that you don't argue with people who buy ink by the barrels or watts by the 100,000. So that's just my rule. I was the first to recommend that they stop holding the briefings during the daytime when the stock market was open. And luckily they did that. I'm not sure they listened to me. I'm sure they probably had a lot of other people that said the same thing, Steve Mnuchin probably among them. But look, this is the one question I get on the road the most, Sean, when I'm out speaking. People come up to me and they also ask, how can you tell the difference between fake news and media bias and real news? And I always tell people, check the transcript. If you have any question about a headline that's written, a story that's written, check the transcript. And so I did over the weekend. And what I found was that President Trump was actually not prescribing that people go inject themselves with Lysol or bleach or any other sort of disinfectant. He was actually asking Brian, the head of the Science and Research Division of the Homeland Security Department, who was at that briefing. He said, could we look into ultraviolet light into the body? Could we maybe look at other things, disinfectants? Are we going to test that at some point? That's what he said. But of course, that was not the headline heard around the world. I'll say this in conclusion. This has been my concern since Sean Spicer left the White House, that there's not really a concerted communications effort. There's not really a professional that's in charge of the communications here that can sort of brief with the president before he goes out there and says, this is what we want to talk about. And then when we're finished talking about this, then you leave the room. That's what you want to do. You want to keep those press briefings contained to topics that are your strength. And I understand from many advisors to the White House over the weekend, that's what they're going to do. They're going to start shifting and focusing back to the economy, things that Trump does best on.
I got to bring Richard into this. Richard's hanging by with us. The president did come back and address that issue of disinfectants brought up. He says it was sarcasm. Richard.
Yeah, Jen's right. You can't, she's right on a couple of counts. You can't go in there and just not have a structured press conference. If you go and you watch Andrew Cuomo every day and you see how structured he is with video and sitting there himself and then answering questions, it's a very different animal than Donald Trump. Donald Trump just likes to muse. He likes to say things. And quite frankly, it's very dangerous and very risky and stupid. And what we have here, and Jen is right again, you go to the transcript. What we have here is not only a transcript, we have the video, like Warner Wolf used to say years ago, go to the video. And when the president of the United States goes and turns to his support and his doctors and says, well, I don't know, can we use disinfectants internally? That's a really, really scary thing to say. And the reason why the press has picked up on it is because, quite frankly, it may be the biggest blunder. I would say it's the biggest blunder in a presidential press briefing in history. But he can't. He goes off and he goes off and off and off, and he can't do that. And what's happening, and the reason why he's pulled back a little is that it's hurting him. It's hurting his image. It's hurting everything he does because it just sounds ridiculous. And the press gets off on it because it is an absurd question. So I think he's got to stick to the script. Yeah. He's got to make it minimalistic. If there's questions about science, he has to punt to the medical people and not just say something which everyone can look at and
I'm gonna
the press.
I'm going to jump in really quick because I only have a limited amount of time. I want to get your comments on this because states are opening up right now, but some mayors seem to be in denial about opening up. New York's Mayor Bill de Blasio now saying this, Jennifer, he will not even have a plan until June 1st. And it may take 20 months to reopen America's largest city.
Well, first and foremost, Sean, this is a complete breach of the trust between the mayor and all New Yorkers who live in the city. We were promised that if we were good little boys and girls and locked in and broke the curve, bent the curve significantly, that we would be allowed to go back out faster. And we did our part. We bent that curve. Now, we're still not quite where we want to be. But now the mayor is saying he's not even going to have details till June 1st. That's extremely unfair to the millions of New Yorkers who've stayed in for the last 40 days with great discipline. Look, the mayor wants an additional $7 billion from the U.S. government for what we lost. If Bill de Blasio doesn't reopen New York City, granted, safely, staggered, and with social responsibility, look, there's going to be no New York City left. And I have real concerns about the plan he has hinted at, which is basically a Robin Hood list of how he's going to do reparations for anyone harmed in this. And putting the First Lady in charge of some of this, she oversaw a bill.
Let me just jump in really quick here. Richard, I'll give you...
Here's why she's wrong. You have to look at the numbers. New York City. The city of New York has 158,000 cases. The country of France has 162. The country of Germany, including Munich and Berlin, has 157. The country of the entire UK has 152,000. New York City has more cases than all of those countries. We're including London, we're including Manchester. Think about that. So to open up a populace, which is a city of New York, quickly is very scary. The numbers in New York are death-defying. It's not like anything else we've seen. Every single country has less coronavirus cases than the city of New York. Think about that.
That's why I said, Richard, safely and a staggered
Last comments from Jennifer, really quick. Last comments from Jennifer, 20 seconds.
Very, very, very careful. That's the bottom line with New York City.
Look, I'm all about being careful. I'm all about public health. I've been in public health a lot of my career. That's why I said you've got to do it safely, in a staggered way, and in a socially responsible way. But you can't tell the people of New York that they did their jobs, and now you're not going to do yours until June 1st. That's not going to fly in New York.
All right, and I got to leave it right there. That is Jennifer Kearns, Richard Roth. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to continue the conversation in just an hour.